Before we start, if you're interested in doing more advanced stone setting, the stuff that I normally don't do, the stuff that I do is normally fairly practical jewelry, but the guy that I learned what little advanced stone setting I know from is Peter Keep, and he's got a new place, and it's jewelrytrainingsolutions.com.au with double L in jewelry, or jewelrytrainingsolutions.com. Either one of those will work. Have a look at his site because he's really good. He's the one that teaches the apprentices here in Perth. And if you want more advanced stone setting, give him a try. Ciao. This is what we're making, a 3-color spinner ring, fine silver on the inside, copper on the outside with a brass spinner. We've done this before, and I thought it would be fun to do it with the 3 colors instead of just with silver. So for this ring, we need 0.5 fine silver, 0.7 copper, and 9 millimeters wide. And the brass wire is 1.33 high and 2.37 wide. So I made that by rolling 2 millimeter round wire through my half round rollers. You can buy it half round. You can use round wire for this. I just used half round to lower the profile a little. You could use multiple rings on the inside here. You can texture your copper. You can texture your ring. This is another one of those things that I'm just showing you the basics, and you can modify it to something that's completely your own. If you do multiple rings, make the wire smaller so that you can fit them in here. Because what you don't want is you don't want a really deep curve. Otherwise it'll bite into the side of your finger and be uncomfortable. So get the size of your ring. You can use an existing ring if you want. You just need to be able to measure the inside, get it in millimeters, add the height of your wire, multiply by 3.14. This will give you the exact length to cut your material. And I would cut it before I anneal it. It's always easier to work it if it's slightly hard. My measurement for the first ring comes out to be 60.8. And I take the trouble of setting the calipers. Tighten it so that way it'll stay, and then I just hook the end of the calipers on the metal and drag it across, and that gives me a nice fine line to cut to. So we cut to the outside of the mark, and we'll saw and then file back to the mark. Make sure this is square. I use a number 2 cut flat hand file. Try to keep your elbow level when you're doing this, otherwise you'll be filing a curve. Check the material against your file, the edge of your file, make sure it's nice and flat. And now anneal it. Now this is fine silver, so you only need to heat this for about 6 seconds. That's it. Quench it, and we'll form it into a ring. Now we're using fine silver for our first ring, so you don't need to pickle it. And I'm going to hallmark it now. So that's 999 FS. It's easier to hallmark it when it's flat. And since I put that in the middle and we're going to be forming this around, none of our cleanup will affect our hallmark. So just use your flat half-round pliers. Half-round goes on the inside. On the inside. I almost put my hallmark on the outside. Just form this around, and fine silver, you could almost do it with your fingers. So basically we just want to get these edges, the end, so that it fits together perfectly. Make sure it's not twisted. So fiddle around, get this as perfect as you can, because it'll save you time later. I'm just holding this joint up in my third hand and putting flux on the top and on the inside of the joint. You don't need a huge amount, so just make sure that the joint is covered. I'm using a number 3 sable flux brush, and make sure that your flux is a nice liquid thick paste. If there's any liquid on top, it's water, so mix it up. Make sure that it's white, creamy white. And we're going to use hard solder for this. 2 small pieces. And I'm going to pick those up on my solder pick. Tungsten solder pick, and you can just heat it up. Touch the solder, it'll jump onto the pick. Now this one I'm heating from the top. I don't want to heat the lower part of the ring, otherwise it'll expand and open the gap up. I'm just heating the top, place the solder flows, and that's it. Now with the solder on top and heating on the top, it'll keep most of the solder up here, and there'll just be a fine line on the inside to clean up. So quench in water, pickle now because we have to get the flux off. You can see it still hasn't oxidized, but we do need to pickle it to get the flux off, or you can just run it under the hot water tap and give that a bit of a scrub and it'll come off. So we're out of the pickle, dry the piece, check your solder and make sure it's beautiful. Hammer this up on the ring mandrel with the rawhide hammer. Be fairly gentle because this is fine silver and it's easy to stretch it. Flip it. Make sure you don't have a taper. Check your size. And the size would read in the center of this. So with a wide ring, you don't read the top or the bottom. You actually read the center mark. So now that it's beautiful and perfectly round, we're going to measure the outside diameter. 2 different places. So here and 90 degrees, then we'll take an average of the 2, add the thickness of our copper, which is 0.7, multiply by 3.14, and that'll make the ring that goes around the outside. Now if you're going to put a pattern on this, I would anneal it, put the pattern on, then cut it to length, anneal it, because you've work hardened it after hammering it, form it into your ring, and when you solder it, put your solder on the inside because we don't want to flood our pattern on the outside. If you're going to make it plain, just put your solder wherever you want, inside or outside, and heat it. Now, tidy up your solder joint on this when you get this one so that it fits perfectly over the outside. And you may have to stretch it a little bit. Just put it on the ring mandrel. You can use the planishing hammer. I'll show you. Tidy up the solder on that. Polish both of these rings, so completely finish them right up to and including polishing. My copper's cut to length, and the ends are filed so that they're nice and square. We're just going to heat this up into a dull red. This one will take longer, and I'm just brushing the flame end to end. When you can see a dull red, stop. So that's that. Let it cool just a second or two so that it's not, you don't see the red, then we'll quench it in water. Now this one you have to pickle. So you can see that it's oxidized, and we pickle it to get the metal clean, make it easier to solder. Now copper's like the fine silver. When you anneal it, it's so soft and easy to manipulate. You can basically do it with your fingers. So a little bit of flux top and bottom, and 2 more pieces of hard solder. These are only about 1.5 millimeters long. You could place them on the ring with your flux brush, but I find it a little bit quicker to actually use the solder pick. So I'm just heating the joint. Make sure that your flame is straight on so both sides of the joint are the same temperature. Otherwise your solder will jump to the hottest side. So there we go. And I soldered on top again, and that way I just have a thin line to clean up on the inside. If you're concerned, you can heat from the inside and draw the solder through, because the solder will fill a gap between 2 pieces of close-fitting metal. I'm not too concerned whether I'm heating on the top or on the bottom. So quench in water, pickle, and then we'll continue. While I'm waiting for the copper ring to pickle, I'm just going to whiz up the inside of my fine silver ring. So put the abrasive up with your sandpaper, split mandrel, about 10 mil sticking through, so that as we turn it, it'll fold over so that it'll stay in place. And I'm just using 400 grade paper for this. So when you're using the split mandrel, always make sure you keep it moving, otherwise you'll wear grooves and you'll end up with something worse than what you were trying to tidy up in the beginning. And I'm just going to leave this a satin finish. I'm actually not going to polish the inside. I quite like the satin finish. Looks like that. So our copper should be ready to take out and tidy up. So dry off the metal, and you can see I have just a fine solder line on the inside to tidy up, and the majority of the solder is out here, and it's always easier to tidy up the stuff on the outside. So we'll just round it up on the ring mandrel with the rawhide hammer. Usually you can just push the ring all the way down. going to check the fit before I do anything else. So this should be a nice snug fit over the first ring. It's slightly small, which is what you want because it's always easier to hammer up a ring to stretch it a bit. And I'm using a planishing hammer and the flat side of the planishing hammer, not the domed side. So just the flat side, and don't kill it, but check it fairly often, because if you make it too big, you're going to have to, you'll have to cut it and re-solder it. So flip it over. And you can see we have a few little hammer marks, but they're quite easy to sand out. And when you get this so that it pushes over your ring, and it's a nice snug fit, finish tidying up your solder joint, but then you'll want to anneal it because we need to form both of these rings at the same time. And we've work hardened it by hammering it up. And if you don't anneal it, it'll be difficult to form. So just continue until you have a nice, fairly gentle push to get the outer ring over the inner ring.